Morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear well. Thank you, everyone.
Sawadika Kannopadam. Morning, Bev. Or evening, I should say. Evening, Bev.
Good morning, good evening.
Hi.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hello.
Very well.
Sarah, hi John, hi Tom and Bev.
Hi, Tom.
Are you there, Jan?
Sawadika.
Sawadika, Jan. How are you?
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
Sawadika,
Sawadika, Jen.
ครับสวัสดีครับ
Please carry on.
Tom and Bev or anyone? Does anyone have anything they would like to bring up?
Nothing.
Maybe I'll just start with one or two of the topics that were brought up at the end of the discussion on Saturday, Jan. One or two of the very common ideas, like people were mentioning, talking about loba to positive things, like loba to Dhamma, and suggesting that this can be a condition for interest and understanding, which is true, and therefore the loba is somehow more beneficial than other kinds of loba. And I was saying, of course, any loba is loba, but this is a common idea that loba for Dhamma is somehow to be accumulated or to condition Dhamma. And we know by Pakutu Upanishad Pachya, anything can be a condition for understanding, but still any loba is just loba. And the other point that people were bringing up, they were mentioning that often the Buddha talks just about dana, or when talking about the gradual development, Anupubikata talks about dana and then sila. And so they were suggesting that he's not always talking about understanding of realities and the development of satipatthana. But I was saying my understanding is even when it's about dana or about sila, it is about the reality to be understood as anatta from the start. So I think these are very common ideas, and this is what leads to ideas that dana, then sila, then and so on. Do you have any comments on any of these points that were being discussed at the end of the session?
I think that if one thinks like that, it's not studying Dhamma. It's one's own idea. But Dhamma is so true. That's why we would like to understand the truth. That is Satya Parami. Just to understand. No idea of having no lopa or having no akusala at all yet. But to understand the truth. And right understanding begins to see what is what. So very, very truly, that's why just learn to understand Dhamma now. Not any idea of I would like to, or I think like that, of this. I think that lopa, even is so very tight, little, it's benefit or beneficial. That is not the understanding of the truth. That's why now it's not just wanting to attain Nibbana, no kilesa at all, or just have less attachment to the self. It's just to understand the truth, because understanding will works itself its own way, perform its function. No one at all, not anyone at all. Just learn to understand it right now. What is there? What is the truth of it? The absolute truth that no one can deny. This is the understanding from the beginning to the end. And Panya works itself. Even know much or understand much and more about the truth, it's not enough to let go the idea of self yet. All depends on conditions. That's why we learn to understand the absolute truth of this very moment. What is there? See, without understanding, the truth is there, but no understanding. So there is attachment and take it for something as usual all the time. Because when there's nothing at all, how can there be any attachment or clinging to that which is not there? But as soon as something is there, ignorance is there, no understanding what it is, but it conditioned, attached to that object. And being attached is a reality, because now it is now attached to that which appears unknowingly, that it is something, even that is attachment, loba, taking it for something that is very good to appear to be object right there. Not no thought about better not to have it at all, rather than have it and cling to it and don't understand the truth of it. That's why we have to begin to be very sincere and to be true to the truth, because no one can understand the truth at all without hearing what that can be considered as whether it's true or not. Just right now, this moment is not the other moment. Only this moment is there. So what is it? Or no understanding of it at all. And how can there be the understanding of that as it is? How come to be just appearing without no one making it to arise at all? But it's there. That's why from developing, considering about the truth little by little, there must be conditions to condition its arising to be just like that, not the other thing. That's why what is seen, if there is no reality which can experience an object, can there be this moment of seeing? Only that. And learn more from the words of the enlightened one, whether he has really enlightened or not about the truth, about everything that is not known until there is the words from enlightenment to be considered whether it's true or not just right now. Right now it's so true. Who can say that it's not true? Because it's there already. But what is it? There is a reality which sees, which means that it can know or experience the object which is seen because it is there to be seen. Only that in a moment, from moment to moment, the truth is there, ready to be considered, whether it's true or not. And the understanding of the truth cannot belong to anyone, it cannot be anything. It's the moment of hearing. And then there are conditions for considering wisely. And when it's there arising, it understands, which is not before hearing at all. Only from moment to moment, no self and no one. Just develop the understanding by no one, but the moment of understanding. That's why we're thinking, learning about that until it appears as it is to Panya. So what appears? The characteristic that which now appearing, but the arising and falling away, its characteristic does not appear yet. That's why the truth is that without arising, it cannot be there. Without condition for its arising, it cannot be there. And it is there so very short. No one knows. And then it's gone. But but they're conditions for the next moment or the next experience of the object. And Buddha taught about the details of each moment, what arises and what follows from moment to moment, from birth to this moment, and then on to the moment of death, not being this person anymore, and then another condition to condition the next moment again, not to be this person at all. That's why it's so true. And it's not just that moment, it is right now. This moment is gone. And there are conditions for other moment right then succeeding. So very rapidly, that's why it cannot be known until the enlightened moment is there. The truth is the truth. But now, even it's just like that, no understanding of what it is at all covers up the truth that just a moment is gone. What is there now is not last moment. See, that's why just learn to understand and learn to understand that nothing can be done just right now. Can anyone make seeing arise now? Thinking arise now, but it's there. See, as the seeing there is thinking, who can stop the way it is? Impossible. So there are conditions for each reality which is there, but it has to be known in order to understand that it is conditioned, no matter in life, from moment of birth. It's there already. Some will say, oh, and so how can I do or should I do? Whereas the I is there already. Thinking of such thought is there by conditions. That's why life goes on like animal. It doesn't have to think, shall I go on, how I can go on, but it lives by condition. So whatever is there is conditioned just to go on by conditions until time comes to be not this person anymore. But there must be conditions for birth after death instantly, just like this life, on and on and on. Just learn to understand whether it's true or not, only that. Because now no one has done anything to have anything arise. It's there already. From moment to moment. Is this true or is it not true? And what is the end? There must be the end. And then what? Condition is there. Condition the moment after death, like moment after seeing right now. By conditions. Just to understand the truth, that's all. And there are so many truths of a reality, different ones, all the time, until it's known as it's not there forever. It's just there when it appears and then gone, never to be found, never to arise again at all in samsara, no matter when and where. But there must be at the moment other reality succeeding all the time. This moment, from moment to moment, just learn to understand the truth. There must be moment of forgetting about the truth, clinging to that which appear, like and dislike, pleasant or unpleasant, by conditions.
Yes, it's true. And I think that the more understanding develops, the more confidence there is that just like whatever arises now, it's just Dhamma, it's just Citta, Cetasika, or Rupa. And in the same way, whatever we read in the text, even when it seems to be just about Dana, it has to be about reality, about Citta and Alobha, Cetasika, different realities which are anatta, conditioned and fall away. And this is the deep meaning that the Buddha spoke about in every verse, in every sutta, in every reference. So when it seems that he's talking about dana, then sila, then insight, but actually right from the beginning, the dana, it has to be the understanding of reality. Otherwise, it can never lead to the development of insight. So even when it seems that, like someone mentioned on Saturday about the Sigalawada Sutta, even when he's talking about good behavior or kindness or responsibility, actually he's referring to different kusala chittas. Or in the Vinaya, when it seems like he's talking about bad behavior, but again, it's to akusala chittas, which lead to certain actions. So whatever we read, it's about Dhamma, it's about the truth. Just like now in daily life, different chittas, kusala, akusala, all the time to be understood gradually. And so more and more confidence that whatever we read about, whatever we hear about, it's just about different dhammas, about the truth of anatta. But I think it takes time. It's not easy for people to appreciate this, just like it's not easy to understand the truth at this moment.
And just understanding is not enough. It has to be a moment of directly experience the truth, which can be conditioned to understand at that level too. That even right now, if there is no attention, no understanding of that which is different from the other, one is only one, cannot be anything together with it. For example, hardness is there. So what we have learned about the truth is there, different reality. The more there can be the understanding of it, it can show up to be the object of understanding. For example, now, we touch many moments and no understanding of it, but from hearing right now, it can condition moment of understanding that what is there now? Just know about it, think about it is not enough because there's so many things around and even what we can say inside, not outside, is there to be known. For example, feeling right now is there from birth. Each moment is there unknown as it is conditioned to be such and such, just arise and falls away. If that is not known clearly or directly, it cannot eradicate or it cannot eliminate the clinging to it as something there and I is there when it's the inside, as we say, not outside. That's why we learn little by little to understand what we take from I or self or anyone or anything, to let go the idea of taking it from something permanent like I or thing, which is not as it is at all. And it, without understanding what condition is there by what Buddha taught by, there are different causes like wholesomeness and unwholesomeness, wholesome reality and unwholesome reality. But the best of all is the understanding of the truth, because it can understand what is there as it is, while there's no understanding at all. Just wanting and wishing and trying to get something. And where is that which has been taken for mine? Not at all. Even right now, where is what we take from mine? See, it's something that at moment of thinking or seeing or hearing or touching, just that. That's why to understand just one word, it has to go deeper and deeper to understand the absolute truth. It's not that anymore. It is just conditioned to be there and then gone instantly all the time in each life. That's why no end for whatever is now arising. It is conditioned to be exactly like what it is now, but not the same one. That's all by conditions. For example, seeing. It is conditioned to see. See, when there are right conditions, no one can stop its arising because it's there, conditioned to arise to see right now. That's why it's not easy, because it's just not for talking about it, but to directly experience the truth that it's there. So it can be directly understood. The arising and falling away of different ones, see? But there must be the understanding what is one, what is that which is not the other. For example, what is seeing and hearing. In truth, no one sees, but seeing it's conditioned. It arises, it sees, it just sees. That's all. And at moment of hearing, it is conditioned to arise, to experience sound. It's not sound, but it knows or it experiences sound and then gone. Each is so very different, only one. Seeing in a moment, thinking about moment when it's more, just more tiny than just a moment we take. A moment of seeing, we think like that. But in reality, it's much shorter than that. So very short. To be just, it says that which cannot be taken for anything at all. Only that which can impinge on the eye base. That's all. Conditional seeing, just to arise and see. Only that. So seeing arises at the eye base and sees that which is there. While the other, citta, we call that because we have heard about this word enough to just use the word citta. The next one cannot see, but it can experience what is there. But it does not arise at the Chakku Pasada, the eye base. It arises at the ear base, but it can experience that which seen, and then fall away. And this is the life and what is meant by enlightenment. It can be the right understanding to that degree from hearing again and again and understanding better and better to let go that that is I, the whole body from head to toe. That is not true at all. Because what is there is that which is not the whole body. No shape and no form at moment of seeing, but after that, there can be the idea of what appears as something differently. So right understanding can develop to the moment when it's unexpectedly beyond expectation. It cannot be imagined how it's just like Buddha taught, because it's so true, and just one reality can be directly understood from developing understanding after hearing and considering. No one can do that. So even just a moment of direct awareness is conditioned. Without understanding enough, even it touches at that moment, hardness appear, no understanding of that which experienced that and that which is hard, which is experienced. So very daily pass on, unknown, until the words of the truth is there to be considered, to begin to understand it. No one, as we take that for you or I, nobody can do anything, because actually there's not that which can be taken for I or body or anything as it is. Hardness can be just hardness when it is the object of understanding, not hand, not foot, not chair, not anything at all. Very natural. Whatever comes, pleasant feelings, so very pleasant, all right. right understanding can understand that, as it is that level of pleasantness. Nobody can change it. It's there. The truth is that it's gone, never to arise again. So where am I who feels so very pleasant? Impossible. That's not true. Because actually, what can be taken for I, seeing sees by arising by conditions and falls away instantly. No I, no one and no thing. And that can be directly experienced. Not anyone, but is the highly developed panya enough from a moment of hearing, considering, having more confidence. That's why it is thira sanya of no self and no thing. At that moment, it can condition the understanding directly of that which is there, which hasn't been known, even is now, here. When it's not time yet, it cannot be known as that level of understanding. So natural, see? And the word is there. After it has heard, it can condition moment of thinking about that by conditions. While in the day, there might not be any moment of thinking again about what it's heard at all, until it's heard again. Right now, depending on conditions, how much understanding of the truth of one characteristic at a time.
Yes, and there were also comments on Saturday that this may be too direct for some people, and someone mentioned about the life of the Buddha and what was helpful at different stages. But I think that what is true and has to be stressed right from the very beginning. And I think that this is what the Buddha was doing, whatever he spoke about, because if there isn't the beginning of understanding what is true, then it can never develop to the direct understanding. So one has to talk about realities directly right from the start in order for that understanding to develop. So if there's no beginning of understanding, that it's just seeing now that sees, not I that sees, not anyone who sees, how can there be more understanding or more confidence in the truth that there are just different dhammas arising and falling away?
Jan Cup, I appreciate what you've been speaking about this morning. I think it's a real blessing to hear it all, and it's so true, as was said also. I'd just like to make a comment to what a couple of points that were made this morning. First of all, I don't believe the Singalawada Sutta, as you say, Sarah, was quoted. I think all people are saying, and it's evident, and I think it's very axiomatic, that we know what the Buddha's teachings ultimately are about. And if there are the conditions for them to be spoken about, like we are very fortunate to hear from Tanajan, then that's a blessing. But as was indicated in the sutta that I sent off, the Ananda Sutta, the Buddha remained silent when Vajjayagota approached him. That fellow was not ready. And there are other suttas, many other suttas. So I don't think it's helpful, and I think there's a degree of what I call disingenuousness about what the Dhamma is about. Sometimes he didn't always speak to these truths. Yes, those truths are occurring now, Sarah. Absolutely, no question. But the Buddha did not always speak to those truths. And it seems like you seem to be wanting to force that us, that it is, that he did in all situations. That is not true.
Often the Buddha would keep quiet or would not respond because it's not helpful. Just like if we're talking to people, we will keep quiet. But when he spoke about generosity or restraint or sila or rules for the monks. He was talking about the truth about different realities in life. So whenever he spoke, it's about what is true about dhammas, that's all. Just like now, there are only dhammas. So sometimes it's not the appropriate time to speak. Usually it's not the appropriate time to speak to friends who have no interest, or it will be misunderstood. But when speaking about the Dhamma, he was speaking about the truth to be understood here and now, that's all. So when he spoke about generosity, it was about the reality. When he talked about wholesome ways of behavior, it was about the dhammas, not about people and things, no matter what language was used.
Again, Sarah, just 2 seconds, if I may. Sorry, Sukin. This is what you're saying is axiomatic, absolutely obvious. And we have to bear this in mind. All the other people were saying was that sometimes the Buddha, in the case of when he was speaking to Vajragotta, he remained silent. It wasn't appropriate. He didn't speak about the deeper Dhamma. He did not always do that. Yes, and as you quoted the Vinaya, yes, there'll be many times when obviously there has to be Dhammas appearing. He didn't always speak directly to that. Many of the people there would have understood that. Perhaps many didn't. We don't know that. So it's like you seem to be wanting to tell us that he always did this or did that. I don't agree with it at all. Okay, I'm sorry, Sukin, please continue.
My understanding is that the Buddha would, as Sarah is saying, he was talking about dhammas. So definitely, because he knows that there are only dhammas, not people and things. So as Sarah says, he wasn't talking about, and he wasn't talking to encourage people to do things or think in terms of a self who is good or bad. He was talking about dhammas, but he knew, I mean, what the particular audience could understand. But he was still talking about dhammas. So whatever he said, whatever level the person who heard it understood, it was about dhammas.
I think that's self-evident again, Sukin. That's axiomatic and somewhat, I view that as somewhat patronizing. I'm just saying that all I'm saying is that he didn't always speak to those deeper truths which are operative as of this moment. If we read the suttas, we'll see that very clearly, time and time again. No doubt many people like Ananda, who was often there listening, or he was shared, or had the suttas shared with him later on, he would have understood this. But not everybody did. There were many people, lay people, especially many people, who came to him and asked questions about what you can do to be a more beautiful person to look at, and have pleasant rupas, etc., etc., etc. He wouldn't always, to all people in every situation, we know those realities we're hearing. So again, I think that's slightly disingenuous of you when you tell us what is obvious anyway. I don't find that helpful. And I think all I'm just saying is that the Buddha sometimes did not speak about the truths, as in the case when he did not speak to Vajragotta, because this fellow, at that point in time anyway, had not even reached square one yet. He couldn't understand some very basic logic. So the Buddha didn't even attempt to speak to him. And I think there are people with many, many different levels of understanding. So I don't accept this line that Sarah and yourself seem to be now pushing, that the Buddha was always referring to reality. Yes, of course he was, ultimately, but he didn't always speak to them. That's the point I'm saying. And to say that he spoke directly to those at each particular moment is not true. He didn't always speak to it, which, yes, it was always occurring. That is obvious, true, truth is truth. But he didn't always speak that deeper truth to everybody. That is the only point that I'm making. So to have this kind of trope hauled out every time the Buddha spoke to these at every moment, yes, as Jonathan said, he maximized the moment. That's what a Samma Sambuddha does. He absolutely maximized the moment. but he did not always speak to that deeper truth, not to everybody.
Well, I don't think this is something very deep, really. It's just as simple as Sarah just mentioned. Sometimes you don't, I mean, not sometimes, but I mean, often you don't speak about Dhamma with your friends because you know they are not interested or they just won't understand. Or sometimes you just speak about simple things or more superficial Dhamma, we can say, right? So the same is for the Buddha. And I think that what Sukhin means when he says that he always spoke about Dhammas, he's referring when he was doing discourses, of course, because in his daily life, maybe he would just tell Ananda, can you please pass me the spoon or something like that, right? Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yes, and Roti, when he was talking as an instruction or as a discourse, it was meant to be something useful. So surely he wouldn't be speaking, and he knew the other person's accumulations. So he would speak or not speak. If he didn't speak, it's because he knew that the other person would take it wrongly. So when he spoke, he also made sure that the other person did not take it wrongly. So he said, I mean, not to be taken wrongly. Whatever he spoke.
And if he spoke about generosity, for example, it was never like another teacher just encouraging someone to be generous with the idea that I am generous. It was always about the truth of the reality, about the nature of the citta for a moment, to be encouraged with understanding.
We could say that his purpose was to point to ultimate truth or to enlightenment, right?
Always pointing to the truth.
But maybe sometimes it would not be very obvious that he was pointing towards that. Yeah. Because he knew.
I think it depends how we read the suttas too. Like someone may read a sutta like the Sigalawada Sutta or a sutta about generosity and think it's just about ordinary ways of behavior that everyone knows about. But for those who have developed understanding, they know it's just about different realities that have been pointed to. No matter what the language is, whether it's sutta language or Abhidhamma language, it's always to the truth at this moment. This is what the Buddha was enlightened to.
As you said, for those who have developed understanding, they will know. But those who haven't, they will just read it as, as a more conventional kind of teaching, I guess.
And Sarah, when he was talking about ordinary behavior, it was the Buddha who was speaking. So it wasn't like any other teacher speaking.
Exactly.
So it had to be different.
Completely different. And that's why it's so easy for anyone to read the suttas and completely miss the point that it's about dhammas that are anatta. And this is the Buddha's teaching about different kinds of cittas. It's not just an ordinary encouragement to be good and do good works and be a good person at all. And that's why without an understanding of Abhidhamma, about an understanding of realities, whatever is read will be misunderstood. Whatever is heard won't be understood properly. So that's why here we stress in the discussions about the truth of realities. And some people find it too direct, but if it's not the understanding of different realities right now to be understood deeper and deeper, more and more directly, then nothing will be developed, no understanding. There will be no understanding whatever one reads or hears.
And we know from experience that to people, amongst friends who understand the same thing. We don't have to use, we can use ordinary language. We can just tell him, for example, oh, that's not good and don't do this. But with, both understand that it's actually referring to Dhammas without having to remind exactly that it's just Paramatha Dhammas.
I don't know about that, Sukin. I don't know about that at all. If you say to somebody, don't do that, it's not so good. If you do happen to say that, as the Buddha did sometimes to children, in fact, then they may not always, yes, there are Dhammas at that moment. As I said before, that's axiomatic. There are always Dhammas. But it's like you seem to keep on insisting that people will understand that Dhamma is Dhamma. They don't.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, that's why I said it on Saturday, that in the case of children, for example, he was still talking about Dhammas, but he knew that who he was talking to. If it was like that, that's why I give the example. If it was, say, followers of another religion who would have heard those and taken as something to do, then he wouldn't have said it. But children weren't in that. They just, like you speak to children that killing is bad. It's not necessary that they will take it immediately as in terms of wrongly as a self who does. He just at that moment is just knowing that yeah, that's a bad thing, you know. So it's not taken as self, but knowing at that level that killing is bad.
Well,
But
those children.
I don't know why you mentioned children, because most of us as adults
No, hold it, Roti. I think you're misunderstanding. The Buddha
very
spoke
childish.
What I'm saying, Roti, is true. I'm fully realize I'm not speaking to children. We're in a very fortunate situation to hear the Dhamma from a very wonderful person. The Buddha did speak to children sometimes. I was actually quite surprised when I first read it. He told them quite directly that it was cruel to tease these creatures. It was cruel to tease them. So he's not talking about, maybe later on they might have thought, well, let's follow this one up, perhaps in their later life, like Singalawada did. But he spoke to the level of their understanding at each particular moment. And he always maximized, as Jonathan said, on the moment. That always, those moments didn't, although there were Dhammas appearing, yes, I don't know why I have to keep on saying this, but I seem to need to. Yes, there are always Dhammas appearing. We can say now, but sometimes that can be just empty rhetoric. There are realities appearing. All I'm saying is that he did not always speak, he spoke to people to their level of understanding. That's all I'm saying. And sometimes what he said, yes, the wise person, when they're reading it, like we are fortunate enough to do today, when we read it, we can read it with wise eyes and a wise mind. But there are people at that particular time that may not always be able to do that. It may have been a condition for them at a later time to appreciate the deeper truths of what was being said, maybe not in that particular lifetime. And perhaps Buddha spoke out of his wisdom as a condition for future lives. I'm sure that did happen. Apparently it did in the case of Devadatta. He knew by ordaining him that would help him in a future life, not necessarily this life, because he'd acted pretty horribly. So we don't know the whys and all the whys and the wherefores of these things. All I'm saying is simply this, that he did not always, in all situations, speak to people about the deeper truths. That's the simple point I'm making. Nothing more complex than that. And it seems to me that some people get very super defensive if I say something to contrary to what they are saying. That is all I'm saying. He did not always speak to people, as in the case of Wachigotta and many, many others. He didn't always speak to these deeper truths. To me, I can't see the issue really. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think that this distinction between children and adults, it's a little too much, because I mean, most of us like adults, we're very childish, right? So
true. I just gave us an example, Roti. That's all. I just gave us an example that because the Buddha many times spoke to different people in all walks of life, in all situations, and he maximized the opportunities to share Dhamma, to share truth at that level which they were capable of understanding. That is all I'm saying. So I didn't mean to make, my intention was not to degrade anybody by using the word children, not at all. The Buddha spoke to children sometimes. That's all the point I'm making. I'm just talking about the Dhammas of that particular time. There were these children around tormenting creatures, and the Buddha said, it's not such a very kind thing to do, is it? And obviously they wouldn't have thought, well, this is Dhamma. He's really reminding us about the reality of the present moment. He wouldn't, that's not what he was saying. He was speaking to the level of truth that they were capable of understanding. That's all I'm trying to say. And everyone so far today have been saying, well, he's speaking about the Dhammas. Well, anybody reading that can understand that. And that is true. That is axiomatic. That is self-evident. But it wasn't always self-evident to those children or to Wachagotta or to no doubt dozens, if not hundreds of different people that he spoke to in all walks of life who weren't able to understand the deeper truths, even at what we might call a pariyatti level. They weren't able to do that. There weren't the right conditions. This happened time and time and time again. Surely it did.
So like now, we talk about the truth now, like what is real now, and what is being spoken about at Dhammas, and it just depends on the listener, what is understood or what is appreciated, little or more or whatever. But it is the truth now that is important. So at the moment now, when talking, when thinking, when being disturbed, what is the reality right now? The still seeing, still hearing, still thinking. So it's the same, whatever we read about, it is about the truth now, but it just depends on the listener, how little or much is understood. So that's why we need to come back to understand what appears right now, because that's all that matters. And this is what the Buddha taught, no matter who was listening and no matter whether he was quiet or spoke, but it was always about the truth that appeared at this moment. Right now. Otherwise, we just think about this or that story and forget all about what is appearing right now.
What leads us to understanding also, Sarah, is a certain type of logic and careful consideration. That's all the truths that I'm pointing to. Yes, as you said, you remind us time and time again. And sometimes I feel it can almost sound patronizing, to be quite honest. Yes, there are Dhammas at this particular moment. We all understand that. Well, hopefully we do. Most of the time. Sometimes we will forget about that.
Most of the time it's forgotten.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that, Sarah. Totally, that's true. Mostly it is forgotten. That's what Ajahn keeps on reminding us about. But you seem to want to push this line at times. This is how I perceive it, that the Buddha always spoke to the deeper truths. He did not always do that. That's the simple point I'm making. And I think why I make that as a point is that if we can't logically, in my view, follow that one through and say, oh, yes, that seems to be true, then I think that's unfortunate.
Let's see if Ajahn would like to add any comments on this discussion.
What about the Buddha's last word before he died?
Absolutely, Tanajan, to remind people about the reality of this present moment. That's what he did, appamadena sampadeta. Certainly, he said, don't be negligent. And the bhikkhus around at that particular time, no doubt, many were arahatas, of course. They were all arahatas around him, apparently, except Ananda. They would have understood that deeply. And of course, they would have known that later on, when that was shared, appamadena sampadeta, when that was shared, people would be reminded of the truth of realities. But he didn't always use those words. That's all I'm saying, Tanajan. He didn't always use those words in all situations for all people because they may not have understood that.
That's why no matter what he said, for someone it seems like teaching or talk about something that one should do or something like that, like this, one should do this or that. But actually, his word is all about the truth to be considered. It doesn't mean that when he said this, everyone will follow his word instantly. But what he said is for considering about the truth, no matter what way they take, like they reprimand or whatever, or just that which is so true, and understand that that should be developed, right understanding, and so on. See, it doesn't mean that you do this or you do that, but no matter in what way he spoke, it means that that is so true, depending on the understanding of the person. One might take it as it like a teaching to do, but actually it is to understand. Otherwise, how can it be done without any understanding? Not just follow. It does mean like any teacher who just said this and then the followers just follow instantly. It's not like that. But each word is said for me the moment of considering about the truth at that very moment too. All depends on the listeners. That's
Absolutely.
why one takes reprimanding words or that should be like teachings to do and so on, but actually to understand the truth. For example, anger, talking about that, at moment of listening to anger, who does take it for I am angry at that moment or my anger? Not at all. Just talk about anger itself to be understood. What is it? What degree? And what will it lead to? And so on. To understand about it. So even the last words before he died, he just talked about sati, see, in different way, depending on that person's understanding, how much he can understand that. For the one who's so very careful, even just hearing the teachings, it should be understood that it's just right now, talking about that which is not known yet to be understood. See? And so on. It depends on the listeners too, to take it for what his word talk about, the self or no self, or just the best thing to do, or what is wholesome or what is not wholesome, for the person to consider for their sake, to understand the truth. That's all. Like,
Achan, I have a question for you, and it's regarding a conversation I was having with some friends, and it was the interests that we have in, certain interests that we have. And one of our Thai friends was reminding us that it is just whatever is going on, there is only those present moments of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, thinking. So a lot of we were discussing further, and I think we were sort of saying that a lot of the interest that we have is just thinking, really. We just got this idea about how the world should be, how the environment should be. And this Thai friend was reminding us again and again that it is just this present moment. And so I was thinking about that maybe when you do have a strong interest in something, that, and you get passionate about it, that when there is more and more understanding, the interest in that doesn't disappear just like that. There is still an interest in something because of accumulations, but maybe that interest becomes kind of not so passionate, but softer, or something gentler. Lighter was the word that my Thai friend used, and she said that she'd heard it from you. So would that be correct, that those interests don't disappear unless they're really, well, maybe some do, but generally speaking, the way we've run our lives so far, the life still goes on the same way, but as my friend said, it becomes lighter at times. Would that be correct?
Is it not true? Just like now.
Well, it seemed to, because I was saying to this other friend that, yes, that my interest and my passion in the environment, it's still there, but it's far less, I've got to do something, blah, blah, blah. I still carry on my activities. But yeah, I think it is true that when, and the other question I had was about panya. You know, if panya arises, it's like a pinprick in a cloud of, or a fog or something. Would that be how panya, early development of panya would appear? Just so momentary, and then fog, attachment, aversion again and again, seeing, hearing. And would that, is it because of that slowly developing panya that the lightness comes about?
It's just like this moment when we talk about panya or right understanding, there is a reality facing, appearing just right now. How much understanding of that reality is? Very little, none at all.
Very
Who
little
knows?
and none at all.
See, that's why it has to again and again listen and listen and listen, and then forget until it's so very well established, implanted, and it conditioned the moment so very natural. It's just like that. It advanced thinking about the truth, but it's whatever in life, little by little, gradually see it's useless because it's gone. No matter how much it's so very pleasant or unpleasant, it's not there anymore. See, so just like arising and playing the part, its role all the time, and then gone. What is there? Just like watching a play and then finish, the end has come. Nothing is left. The thinking, the pleasant feeling, and so on. It's just like whatever is there in life. But the understanding of the truth that actually there's nothing, and then there's something, and then nothing again by conditions. From life to life, that's all. Is that not true? So true.
Yes.
How
Yes,
much understanding of that which is now appearing. That's why even just the word, what is there, is only when it appears or when it is appearing, see, can condition right understanding that to understand whatever is there. It's not just thinking about it, but at moment when it's there. And what are there? Not just a reality, many realities are there arising together, but what is there can be known only when it is appearing or only when it appears. And we begin to understand, even we don't call that moment as sati, sampajanya, or satipatthana, directly at moment when it's there. To understand that, not just thinking about it, find out about its truth, but at that very moment, just right now, the object is there. When it's not direct understanding that we have heard, and it develops to understand by conditions directly of that object, it's not yet the understanding of what we have heard directly. So that can be conditioned for less attachment because it's there as it is, but not enough at the very beginning because it's just the beginning. That's why there are many stages of understanding, intellectual understanding, until it's there. Because it's just thinking about it in different ways, not just reminding that it's that which experience and so on, but is unknown. So who can know when will that object is the object of beginning to realize the truth, but not inward, but to understand the way it is, just like that, again and again. Eat again, sleep again, wake up again, experience again, and then again and again, from day to day. At moment of being fast asleep, nothing is there appearing, but Buddha knew it's there, the reality which experiences, but it experiences the object which is not known, because it's not the object experienced through the six doorways. See why we know that? Because as soon as one wakes up, what about just a moment ago? It's different from moment of waking up when it is being fast asleep, and so on. And this is the truth of what is there by conditions from moment to moment, that's all. And what one has the idea about that is different from the other when they have such understanding, different idea about each moment as what has been accumulated. By conditions, one begins to understand life, daily life, as it is, just what it's been heard, and more confidence of the truth until it is directly, see, being aware and understand. Not much yet, but it is beginning to understand the difference between touching, no understanding at all, seeing, no understanding at all. But that very moment, it depends on how much understanding is there to condition the understanding of the characteristic, getting close to what is meant by nama or rupa. Because just to understand from hearing is not very difficult, as when it's there, see, the characteristic which arises and sees, experience an object, when it does not show up, no one can understand how it is, as it is, unseen and no shape and form and nothing at all, just nothing but experiencing. The moment of bhava is there, experience, but the object is not known, because at that moment, what is known is that characteristic which experiences. See, so it develops by conditions to understand firmly that there must be the truth of what is there now, hidden. But right understanding can begin to develop the truth of that little by little. So life goes on depending on at moment when one does not feel like life is useless yet. Keep on right as it is. But when time comes, even it's pleasant, it's so delicious and so on, or whether it's so painful and so on, no matter what, it's there to understand the truth by conditions. So one knows before it can be moment of even thinking about it, consider the truth of it. It takes time to just develop from moment to moment, changing from the way it takes before without understanding to the moment when it's there with understanding. How come, if there's no understanding about the truth, little by little, to be implanted to understand whatever is there is nothing at all? Just that, only when it appears, and only when it appears is the understanding of Satipatthana, how it can develop to understand better than just intellectual understanding, because the truth is there, conditioned by the intellectual understanding, to begin to study, to realize the truth of that which not me, but experiences the object, or that which is not anything before, only that which appears to that which sees it. So it's the way to understand the truth, that the truth is there, hidden, and it can begin to reveal little by little to Panya only who understand it, because now it appears, but no understanding at all. So it's ignorance about that, which keeps on taking whatever as something all around, outer and inner, even feeling right now, sanya, memory right now, and the other reality which is not known, like phassa, see, and so on. That's why we need to hear more just to develop, to understand what is there, little by little.
And
And
perhaps, sorry, John, you keep continuing.
little by little too.
I was just
Ajahn,
going to say, I continue, Asita. You say what you need to say.
I really appreciate, Ajahn, your words when we do have these various comments and questions that you do bring us back to this present moment, because like we were saying with my friend, if there's not the present moment known, then we just go on and on and on with our stories and our likes and our dislikes and our expecting others to think like us and believe in what we believe in. But your ability to bring it back to this present moment is invaluable, in my opinion. Just, it's so good to hear those words again and again. Thank you.
Just to perhaps quick comments, Azita, to your previous question there, that I don't think we all accumulated many different types of, obviously, Chaitasikas in different ways, different shapes and forms, etc. And like if we take the case of Visakha, who cried and cried and cried because her granddaughter died, Sumana, who was Sakadagami, who virtually starved herself to death, that fellow who committed suicide moments before he became Arahata. They were all, you could say, quite passionate people about their feelings. That doesn't inhibit understanding. So I think what you have said, yes, absolutely true. What Tanajan, we're very fortunate to have Tanajan. I was just questioning sometimes, and I think that's appropriate when you hear things that to me are not true. That's all I was saying. I think that when we listen to Dhamma, we should always consider it carefully, no matter who says it. The Buddha himself recommended that. And when somebody says something that's not in accordance with what I certainly seem to be as true, then I'll sometimes speak up about it. And I see that as maybe useful, maybe not. But that's up for anybody to evaluate and to make their own decisions about. So that's all I was initially saying, that I like, when I hear something that I don't think is true, sometimes I might ignore it, as many people do, no doubt, and sometimes it's a wise thing to do. But sometimes some people speak to that truth or that distruth, speak truth to that distruth. And I think that is can be appropriate. Not always, I totally agree. And what Tanajan always reminds us, and has very, very skillfully reminds us of time and time again, she just doesn't say now, which I find somewhat patronizing. She talks very carefully and weighs Dhamma very subtly and enables people to understand that way. And I'm, as I'm sure you are, as you have indicated, carefully grateful for that. So important, but I don't appreciate being patronized, because that's what I feel sometimes happen. That's what I'm just speaking to. And yes, because of my strong attachment, for sure.
Well, I have another question for Achan, and it's regarding Rupa, Achan. So Rupa is experienced by the five sense jittas. Is that the only way that Rupa can be experienced? Or can Rupa be also experienced through the mind door? Like an actual Rupa be experienced through the mind door? Please.
How long one rupa lasts?
Oh, a very, very short time. 17 moments of jitta, which is a very, very short time.
So, what we mean by Vitijita? What is that? The word Vitijita. Why do you use the word viti, citta?
Riti jitta is the process, like, for example, seeing, followed by 3 more jittas, then the jhana jitta. And that's the riti jitta, the process of experience at sense door.
Now we are sure that there must be a reality which can experience an object, right?
Right.
There must be a reality. But what about when it does not see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think? Is it there?
Well, that's what I'm asking. It's not the actual rupa that's experienced, but it is, I guess it must be. I mean, in that riti jitta, it has to be the same rupa that is seen, that visible object. And in that, all the jittas in that process have to experience that same rupa.
Excuse me. Now we are talking about just one word, viti, right? What is it? What does it mean? Viti. Or we can say viti citta. See, it means that there are so many different cittas, many different kinds. That's why we use the word viti citta. It means just only that which can be viti citta, because not just only citta, but viti citta. It has some meaning too. So what's the meaning of viti citta?
Well,
Because citta, which arises and experience an object anytime. But when we talk about viti citta, what does it mean?
well, my understanding of riti jitta is that the jittas that actually experience a rupa in a sense door process.
Only rupa for sensor process. But in the day, we talk about the reality which arises by conditions to experience. And when it's there by condition, as soon as it has fallen away, it conditions the next one to arise instantly. No gap in between at all. But that's why there are so many moments of experiencing what is there, even right now. That is the reality which is conditioned to arise, to experience different objects. But when we talk about viti citta, what does it mean?
I have to admit, I don't know.
It's different from citta, which does not experience objects through 6 ways, right? For example, moment of birth, no eyes yet, no ears yet, but there is the reality which is conditioned to arise, to experience an object. Whenever it arises, it has to experience an object. That's why there are so much difference. While one is fast asleep, there must be the citta, because it's not the dead person yet, not died yet. That's why at that very moment, when it's arising, it's still there, but it does not experience any object through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and even mind at that moment. That's why seems like nothing at all while one is fast asleep, because a citta arises, experience an object not through any way of the 6 ways at all. And there are altogether only 6 ways. Some person have only 5, or it depends. But altogether, there must be 6, no matter where, in what world, heaven or Brahman world or anywhere. So at moment, when there's no experiencing of what is there, which impinges on the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and mind, we use the word, we don't use the word impinge, I think, because it's not the rupa. But you see that When we talk about Vitichitta, it means that the Chitta which experience the object through one of the six doorways, one doorway at a time. To start or begin from that which adverting to that object, because it does not perform the function of Bhavanka, the moment when Chitta does not experience any object through the sixth doorway. Daily life is there from moment of birth. What is there? And then later on, what is the first Vitichitta? Not the object of the Chitta which performs the function of Patisanti Chitta, because that moment does not experience the object through the six ways at all. Not yet. See, that's why we understand what we use the word Vitichitta means. The moment when Chitta experiences the object through one of the six ways. But when it does not experience the object through the sixth way, it arises and it performs a function of Bhavanga, life continuum. It's there. And its object is the object before death of past life, of last life. See, even just right now, there can be death as a process of seeing, or hearing, or thinking, or any process. In the process of Chitta, which arises not just only one to experience an object through one of the six doorways, more than just one, has finished or completed. It's time for Paticca Chitta, this consciousness to arise. See, even right now, and that moment, it does not experience the object through the six doorways when it performs the function of death, and so on. This is the detail of what's there in life from moment to moment. That's why no matter what is heard, understand the truth of it. Chitta, no matter what is the reality which is conditioned to arise to experience an object, it's impossible for any reality which has the characteristic of experiencing not to experience. It has to, because it is that characteristic which arises and experience. So now we begin. What is the first Vitichitta and the second, and go on. In a doorway, which the object is there, not fallen away yet. But the function of each Chitta which experiences that object is different. For example, Bhavanka cannot experience any object through the sixth way because it has its own object as the object of birth consciousness, the object before this of last life. Usually, after a sense door, the mind door process follows. But when it's death, it's not the mind door, but it's the Patisanti Chitta, which carry or have the same experience of object before death, carry on to be the object of Patisanti Chitta of this life, we can say of this life. Not the object of this world yet, so it's not Vitichitta. But when it is Vitichitta, it's moment, any moment, when it experiences the object through one of the six doorways. And it cannot be just one moment, because for the sense door, the object hasn't fallen away yet. So it's there impinging on the eyebase to condition just another Vitichitta, which follow the first Vitichitta, second, and go on until the Rupa falls away. I think that you all know about this, but when we talk about anything, we have to make it clear. When we use the word Vitichitta, how many Chitta can be Vitichitta?
Well, as you've mentioned, it has to be the process of seeing, the 17 jittas that arise in the process of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, and I don't think it's 17 in the mind or it's less, but it's those jittas that are witty jittas that experience an object of this world.
Is there any citta arise before seeing consciousness?
It's this adverting consciousness that adverts to the object that has impinged on the sense door, on the pasada rupa.
Is it viti citta?
I
The
would say
citta,
yes.
right.
Yes,
Is it
would be
viti
citta.
citta?
It's not bhavanga, so it must be viti citta.
So it is the first viti citta, right?
Right.
Is it only one viti citta of that process? Is it only one, or there must be more than just one? Which
There
is
is more. There is
the second.
possibly 17 in each sense door
No,
process.
14, max 14.
14.
Max 14, because 3 Bhavanga cheetahs before, and then 40, max 14 Viti cheetahs, which experience the sense object, beginning with the sense door adverting consciousness.
Okay, so those first
Sense door
3,
adverting,
which are bhavanga, they also classed as viti citta.
no, they're not
No.
Viti cheetahs.
Oh, okay.
The rupa
Oh,
lasts for as long as 17 cheetahs, but it depends when the visible object is impinged. So 3 Bhavanga cheetahs and then 14 Viti cheetahs, which experience the visible object which has already arisen before the adverting consciousness. So max 14 Viti cheetahs that experience the sense object, because the sense object had to have arisen before that adverting consciousness. And then that visible object has to fall away. So the Bhavanga cheetahs that arise after the last citta in the sense door process experience another object. So the visible object has completely fallen away by the time the Bhavanga cheetahs arise, and the mind or process that follows the mind or Viti cheetahs cannot experience the actual visible object because it has already fallen away. But the first process experiences a replica of the visible object.
and so following, excuse me, mind or processes that follow that just take concepts, are they classed as viti jittas also?
So the mind or cheetahs, as John was explaining, they are Viti cheetahs that arise in that process. They experience an object through one of the 6 doorways, in this case through the mind or process. And the first process has to experience the sense object that was fallen away, but it's not the actual sense object because it's fallen away. It's the replica, the photocopy of that visible object or other sense object that was experienced. But the Bhavanga cheetahs in between are not Viti cheetahs. They don't arise in a process.
And so following mind or processes, following that first mind or process on and on, are they viti jittas also, even though they have concepts? Okay.
Did you hear me? Sorry. I can't hear you now.
Could you repeat what you said, please?
So the Viti cheetahs refer to the cheetahs in either a sense door process or a mind door process, experiencing an object of this world. So no matter it's a reality, like in a sense door process, or no matter it's a concept, they are still Viticitas. But the Bhavanga citas in between are not Viticitas.
Okay, that's a lot clearer. Thank you. Thank you, Ajahn.
So the rupa lasts as long as 17 cheetahs, lasts for as long as 17 cheetahs, but the sense door process can have a maximum of 14 cheetahs, often less. It may have fewer than 14 cheetahs, but the rupa still lasts for as long as 17 cheetahs, but it depends when it arose. So it may have arisen several cheetahs before the sense door process. The first cheetah in the sense door process arose to experience it. So even if a rupa is never experienced, it still lasts for the equivalent of 17 cheetahs in length.
And the other point to mention in this context is there are some rupas that are not experienced through the sense doors, only experienced through the mind door.
Right, that's a good point, John, because that was part of my question. So can you give me an example of what rupas they may be?
Like the sense bases, eye base, ear base, etc. For example. Any rupa, any rupa other than the 7 Gochara rupas. There are 7 rupas experienced through the sense doors, right? 1 visible object, sound, etc., and 3 through the body door. So any other rupa that is experienced can only be experienced through the mind door.
Right, of course, yes. Yes. Okay, what about those rupas? You know, we talk about the Vikara rupas. They can only be experienced through the mind door. Is that correct?
That would be correct. If they're experienced at all. If experienced at all.
If at all. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
So now, Ashita, what is Vitijita? Please.
The Viti Jittas are the jittas that experience objects. The Viti Jittas are all jittas that aren't Patisanti, Bhavanga, and Juti. They're the jittas.
What is
jittas that experience objects through the five senses and the mind door.
Does Bhavanga Citta experience an object?
Bhavanga Citta has an object, but it is not an object that is known in this life, and therefore not a Viti Citta.
That's why at the moment of being first asleep, what is there?
Well, there must be Bhavanga Jittas and an object, but it's not known. It's not known by any Jittas in this existence.
Is it Viti Citta?
No, it is not Viti Citta.
So now it's clear. Even Citta arises to experience an object. It depends on what Citta is there. When it is Bhavanga, it does not experience any object through the 6 doorways. That's why the world does not appear at all. No one, nothing at all while one is fast asleep. But since not die yet, that's why there must be a moment of waking up, which is different from moment of Bhavanga. So at moment of waking up, what is there?
At the moment of waking up, Viti Jittas are there because we're experiencing the objects through sense door and mind door of this of this world.
Yes, for anyone, fish or dog or cat or human being, the citta is like this. And when it experiences the object through one doorway, what is the first viticitta?
Well, I think it's the mind door process. I imagine it depends on which plane there is rebirth. But as I understand it, is the mind door. Even in the hell realm, there can be just happiness at just being. So I think it's mind door, Ajahn.
When we talk about the viticitta in life, it has to be through mind door process. It has to be through experiencing object through mind door, right? The first process in life after birth, no matter how many bhavangas are there, the first viticitta is through mind door process, right?
Right.
Before other process in life. And what is the first viticitta in mind door process?
Oh, it's the mind door adverting.
Right. That's why we talk about the truth, about different kind of citta, because they are different by conditions. They cannot just experience the object without that which adverting to that object, so that the next citta can experience that. That's why we talk about viti citta and viti mutta citta. It means that citta which is not viti citta. So it's clear, no one there at all from birth. And after that, it depends on whether it is the sensor or mind or processed unexpectedly all the time, even just right now. So how many citta, which can be the viti citta? We don't have to count. But
Okay, good. I haven't got enough fingers to count on. Well, it's all of the sense door. And there's 14 in each sense door, and then there's the mind door. So it's all of those.
So when we talk about 17 moments, what do we mean?
The 17 moments refer to the length of rupa.
That's it. Not just how many cittas, right? Just the length of the rupa, which arises and falls away, not more than 17 moments of citta at all. That's why no matter it arises at what citta, bhavanga citta, or whatever, it depends on how long will it last. So citta, viti citta can have more or less according to the length of the rupa through 5 senses, right?
Right.
According to how much of that rupa is
Yeah,
left, how
that
many
gives
cheetahs
me
have already
more
fallen
like-
away.
So now we'll talk about the sense doorway, okay? The first viticitta of the sense doorway is what? Did you remember?
It's the first I think it's called Bhavanga Jalana. Is that?
That is not viticitta.
Okay, sorry. It's the Pancha Dwara Vajana Citta, the adverting citta.
Right. That's it. Is the only one viticitta in a doorway, or there must be more than just one viticitta which experience the object which impinge on the eye base or ear base?
It's
Can
not the
there
only
be
one.
just
There's more following.
Can there be just Panchadvara Vajna Chitta?
Well, I'm thinking maybe yes, because if that's the last, if the rupa arose before, a long time before, it would say 16 moments of chitta prior to that Panchadvara Vachana, there would only be that chitta, and then the rupa falls away, so then there's no following Viti Chitta. Is that correct?
You think there can be only Panchadvara Vachana Chitta in the process, which is Viti Chitta? Is it possible?
Well, it sounds like it's not possible. I don't know. My thought is it might arise at the very last moment of the rupa that is falling away, and then not followed by a sense door chitta.
That's why without the teaching of the Buddha, nobody can know, right?
Right. Nobody can know.
That's why
So
Buddha
what
taught
is the
from
answer? Can there just be that one sense door adverting chitta, and then no more to follow, or is that incorrect?
just one Panchadvara Vachana Chitta, because that one conditioned the next one to be Chakku Vijnana or Sota Vijnana according to what Viti Chitta is there, but in what process. That's why we use the word process, because it cannot be just only one Viti Chitta. There must be more to experience that object when the object impinges on the base, particularly whether it is the Chakku Pasada or Sota Pasada, depending on conditions, for the next Chitta to be. But it has to be Panchadvara Vachana for each doorway or sense door process.
Your way of
And-
calculating is right, but there must be at least a few chittas. So there may not be the kusala or akusala chittas in the process. It may stop before the kusala or akusala chittas arise because the visible object arose earlier. But there must be at least a few chittas. And then, as you say, if the visible object's fallen away, then no more chittas in that process after the
Azit.
My thought is that it is so random, isn't it? That there's rupas arising and falling, and there's chittas arising and falling, and I say random, but I know that chittas that experience through chittas that the beauty chittas that experience consciousness is not as random as I think. If it really gives the ability over any of the activities that are going on.
Zita, I understand that a small process called Parita Ramana. So the Panchadvara arises, and they arise right through till Wattapana, and then because the object's only very short, it falls away. The next one is called Mahanta Ramana, which goes right through to the end of the Jawana process. And the very long one, which you mentioned, the very lengthy one, is called Ati Mahanta Ramana, and it goes right to the end of Tadda Ramana. So the objects, so it's going to depend. That's all that I've ever read. I've never heard it just going to Panchadwara, if it reaches Panchadwara, it seems that it continues on. Not, as Sarah spoke to the kusala or akusala or kiriya, I should
Minimum
imagine.
five cheetahs in that
So
process.
it goes through to Wattapana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sundra. Sarah has pointed that out a little while ago. Thank you, though.
And all this seeming of randomness in life, but as we know, each chitta, each rupa is conditioned by particular conditions. So actually, it's just our idea or imagination. In fact, there is nothing random at all. So each visible object is conditioned to be just the way it is, not any other way. Each moment of seeing has to be this way, not any other way.
And I can understand why we're reminded again and again, because, you know, as I say, it appears random, but then I forget about, yes, it's all conditioned, or, you know, there's gamma, which is a gamma is a condition anyway. So, yeah, imagining it's random, but in fact, it's not really. This has been very, very enlightening. Thank you, Achan, Sarah, Don, Sundra. Thank you.
And that is not enough to understand more and more about no self and no one, because we have to understand the difference between each citta which experienced an object, the same object in a process. For example, understanding that pancha, the varavachana, we use the word pancha for 5, but it's the citta which perform the function of avachana, just advert to the object. See, it does not see, it does not hear, it's just moment of not be bhavanka, experience the object of bhavanka anymore, because an object impinges on the base, and then it is the moment of that which advert to the object. And we have to understand too, and we should know the characteristic of each citta better. For example, Panchadwara Ravachana is not vipaka, it's not kusala, it's not akusala, but it is kiriya citta. To understand the difference between what is kusala, akusala, the cause, and what is the result, the vipaka, and that which is not the cause or the result, but it arises just to perform the function of adverting to the object which is there, because it impinges on the base. So it conditions this citta at once when it's there to experience an object. But when it's not experienced, but when it does not experience the object yet, it is bhavanka. So it's the first viti citta which just advert to the object to condition the next citta to experience that object. But the object which is there, which is the object of the mind, of the sense door, can be pleasant or unpleasant. So it depends on kamma, which experience that object. When the object is wholesome, it's the condition for kusala kamma to produce the vipaka, to see it. So seeing moment is only the result of one karma, which has to arise to experience the object as the result. So we begin to understand what is the result of karma in life every day, too, but unknown. That's why we begin to know that actually it's not I or anyone, it's the moment of just experience the object because of the past karma to condition such result to experience such object. That's why we learn more to let go the idea of self who can arrange or do or just is there, not by anyone, but by conditions. And Buddha taught about each condition for each citta too, and not just one condition. That's why the more that is the understanding of the truth of what is there, it will develop to let go the idea of self little by little. But this is only intellectual understanding, which will condition moment of direct understanding with understanding that have been developed enough to understand what is there to that degree of understanding. So we learn to understand when someone talk about kusala, akusala, vipaka, and kriya, we know what is meant, what is there as Panja 5, Dvara Vachana, adverting to the object through the 5 doorways. As not yet vipaka, only kriya citta, because it can experience either wholesome pleasant object or unpleasant object. Any question about this citta?
I have
Panja
no
Dvara
questions. It's just a good reminder that Panchadwara Vachana Citta is a Giriya Citta because the object, because it arises, the first citta to arise in the Iti Citta, and it has to, and it experiences the object, but the object can be pleasant or unpleasant, but it doesn't matter to that citta because it's not a vibhaka citta. So that's made it clear as to why it's that one and not another one.
And Panchadvara Vachana is Viticitta, not in the Viticitta, right? Or when we use the word in, it means among all those which are Viticitta.
It is a Viticitta.
Yes. Mhm. So this is the first Viticitta. Why do we
Yes.
use the word first? Because the next one is also Viticitta. Why?
Yes.
Because it experiences object which Panchadvara Vachana experience. But it's
Yes.
different because it performs different function. Because the adverting function performed already, so the next one, no need to perform it again. But it's moment of experiencing it, seeing or hearing, smelling, tasting or touching, depend on the doorway. So each one is Viticitta, which experience the object through the doorway, no matter it is the 5 doorway or mind door, but the citta which advert to it is different ones. The one which advert to the 5 object is Panchadvara Vachana, and the one which can advert only to mind door process is Manodvara Vachana, different ones, because different function. Even the object is not there as sound or smell or visual object, but the mind or process can advert to that which is not there. But by memory, it has been experienced object already, so it can think about it through mind or even that process really does not impinge on the 5 doorway. That's why we learn to understand the truth of each moment, to understand that actually it cannot be taken for anything, but even it's the intellectual understanding, it can lead to more and more understanding and detachment from ignorance and attachment to the idea of self.
And one other point is Ita's the idle adverting consciousness. And like you say, it doesn't mind, it just adverts to the object. But the following citta, the seeing consciousness, the result of karma, it doesn't mind about what is seen either. It just sees the visible object, no matter it's a pleasant or unpleasant object, it just sees it, no minding at all. Only the lobha that follows later is the minding. The other cittas just experience that object, but no minding at all. just see it, receive it, investigate it. That's all.
And I think even my terminology, it indicates, you know, like saying that seeing consciousness doesn't mind at all. Or what was I saying? But it shows me just how much there is an I putting me in all of these jitters. I don't mind whether the object is pleasant or unpleasant, like that. And it's very subtle.
And the idea behind it that I
yeah.
see that pleasant or unpleasant object,
Exactly.
but actually it's just seeing the object regardless of what object it is. It just sees, that's all.
Yeah. I think I say this at every end of my discussion. I can see why it takes eons and eons. End of story.
Like you say, it's not just the book knowledge or learning the details, because those, as you mentioned, those very subtle wrong ideas of I or something that sees are there. So there has to be the careful considering, and that's why it is right now. It is what is to be understood now. Otherwise, it is just something in the book, not the understanding now. So appreciating and understanding when moments of misunderstanding come in right now, it's really important.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajahn.
So now, what appears?
Well, this visible object appears. Hearing
Okay.
appears.
No, just one doorway. Now, visible objects appearing, right?
Right.
The Panchatavara Vachana appear.
Panchadwara Vachana Jitta does not appear, but it must have arisen if this visible object.
Does seeing appear?
This seeing appears. There is seeing. Put it that way. There is seeing. I would say visible object appears. The actual seeing is more subtle. It isn't. I think if seeing appears, it's like there would be understanding of the jitta that sees.
Not at all. See, that's why we have to be more careful to understand the truth. What appears now is that which is seen, right?
Right.
Because one object at a time, one moment of experiencing at a time, by different kinds of jittas. So now, visible object is appearing. Does Panchatavara Vachana Jitta appear?
It must appear. It must.
Never to be true, to be so true. Otherwise, it is known as it is. But what appears now is not Panchatavara Vachana, only the object, that which is seen, visible object, we call it. But no matter what we call it, it is that which is now seen. Only that is seen, appearing, right?
Right.
So, Panchatavara Vachana appear?
No, Ajahn.
Does seeing appear?
Seeing appears.
Does it appear?
Oh, well, perhaps I should be more precise and say visible object appears. Seeing is, there must be seeing, but it's not appearing.
But does it appear?
It can be known. It does appear. It can be known.
To be true to the truth, satya can lead to the understanding of the truth as it is, as seeing itself does not appear. Even it sees now, but it does not appear. Only the object which is seen appear. That's why it's so very difficult to understand that which experience an object but does not appear, as it is that which experiences the object. Just learn that it's there. At moment of what appears as visible objects, there must be moment of seeing. We call it moment of seeing, but the seeing, the actual seeing, does not appear. Right?
Right. Seeing does not appear.
Mm-hmm. We have to be true to the truth from the very beginning. Otherwise, it's wrong understanding or trying to do something to understand it, but it's not at anyone's control to do, to try to understand. All depends on the words of the truth that is heard to begin to study, to understand the truth of no self before it can appear as it is, as no one, no matter it is the Nama or the Rupa. We just understand the way it is. That which experiences is different from that which cannot experience. So we name it or call it to be understood as that which experience Nama, and the reality which cannot experience Rupa. To understand that actually what is there cannot be taken for I or anything permanent at all. It's only that which appear because there is that which experience it. So it appear. Otherwise it cannot appear at all. Does Bhavanga appear right now?
No, no. Bhavanga does not appear.
But we learn to understand. The moment of nothing appears as the object. It's there, arising, experiencing an object which is not the object of the world, of this world at all. Because what they can be experiencing to be the world must be through one of the six doorways. To understand the truth a little more so that it can let go a little more of ignorance and attachment to the idea of self, that nothing is self, it is as it is. Panchatavara Vachana is Panchatavara Vachana. It cannot be anything or anyone at all. It's only the moment of arising, performing the function of adverting to the object and then gone, never to arise again. That's why when there is more confidence of no self, there can be the understanding of what is heard as is just that. No self and no one, no thing in it at all. Hardness is just hardness. No matter in France or Thailand or anywhere in the world or other world, hardness is just hardness. If it does not arise, there is no hardness. But when it arises, it is hard, only hard. It cannot be anything at all. And this is what we take for the world, that which arises and falls away. Because if nothing arises, there's no world, no thing, no one at all. But when it's there, it's something there, when there's no understanding of its truth. That's why Buddha taught for 45 years in different manners, aspects, to understand better and better about the truth of what is there. There, then, and now, and any time. Exactly the same. Never changed. Absolute truth.
Thank you, Achan. That is so wonderful what you've explained. And I know we're running out of time, but I have one really quick question about Vidijita. Is dreaming, this Bhavanga Jita is when there's fast asleep, but when there's dreaming, that's thinking. So that those dreaming moments have to be Vidijitas.
Mind door processes.
Okay.
So
That's my
Vidijitas.
final question, because I think it's nearly time. Ajahn,
Thank you, Ajahn.
thank you so much.
Sawadika.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And
Sawasdee
goodbye.
krap.
Hello, Mai. Nice to
Ajahn.
see you.